Ciao, Roberto De Zerbi. Spurs have, agreed a deal for the Italian to take over. Breaking news, obviously, coming in the last hour. That Tottenham have agreed a deal to appoint Roberto De Zerbi as a new head coach. Here we go, confirmed by Fabrizio Romano. It's a 5-year deal for Roberto De Zerbi to take over immediately. There's also a little bit more news coming out from Sammy Muttbell, Paul O'Keefe, quite a few other sources saying that there is no relegation clause, so he is here for the long run. If you sack him, obviously with the fact that Spurs go down, there's no root clause in there to help. Fascinating one, really, when we sort of look at it. Tom Allnut saying from the Times Sports Centre, Spurs players were out for dinner last night, excited about the idea of his arrival. Look, I'll be real. I'm not a big De Zerbi kind of guy. I've been steadfast in that. I wasn't a Thomas Frank kind of guy. I wasn't an Igor Tudor kind of guy. There are so many character concerns with Roberto De Zerbi. There's so many personnel, character, player concerns, obviously having signed some absolute dross for Brighton. And I think having set Brighton back a little bit, I think under Hertzler, okay, maybe they've not galvanised and gone back forward. I do think he potentially had run his course at Brighton a little bit. Look, he's not a long stay kind of manager. I saw people comparing his Shakhtar reign. I think, let's be real, there's a few other concerns in that Shakhtar world, but in other concerns, Brighton last couple of years, Marseille didn't even last that. So he's not a long-term manager in that regard. And maybe, going to a big club, maybe that is what is going to change it. We don't know. But, I've sort of spoke about how I'm not a fan of him. There's a few things. I've got some quotes, not quotes. I think it's rude to say quotes. I messaged a friend who is big in the Brighton world. He's big in the social media world now, actually, to be honest. But he does a Brighton podcast. So I've got his quotes. But I also want to say something that Spurs have no real direction. And the reason I say that is you have Ange come in. You think, we've had years of Conte and Nuno and Mourinho, and Mason didn't play the nicest of football. And then Ange comes in, complete rip up of the system. You've got to give that guy multiple years to get the correct players that he wants to play Ange ball. That was the big thing, right? We then get rid of Ange. We bring in Thomas Frank, who then goes back to where we were with the other managers. So obviously, you spent 2 years clearing out the squad and bringing in these players. Well, that 2 years was a waste of time because we're going to go back to where we were. Cool. You've then brought in Igor Tudor. Okay, he was an interim manager. He wasn't a long-term manager. I get it. But again, doubling down on pragmatic, negative football. You're now going back to kind of where you were with Ange. I'm not saying they're the same style of same exact football, but the premise is the same. Attacking front foot, high press football. You're just going back. And this is why, I talked about if you were going to move on from Ange, you wanted to look at Areola from Bournemouth because at least there was some level of he plays some attacking football. It's not exactly the same as maybe as chaotic as Ange's, but at least there was something you could hold on to. There is no real structure with Lang and Vinay, and you know what, De Zerbi together, if you bang all three heads together, you still probably wouldn't have the idea that they know what to sign as a player. But I'm going to read you what my friend Ben said. I'll probably somehow put a picture of him. He's from Seagull Social, so if you want to give them a quick follow, good cracking stuff about Brighton. If you want to stay in the know what Brighton's going on, obviously, Spurs still have to play Brighton this season. And this was what he says. He says he's buzzing to see him back in the Premier League. Tottenham versus Brighton on April 18th just got a whole lot tastier. He said the appointment will go either two ways. He says it would go really well for the remainder of the season or completely capitulate and get relegated. He said his start at Brighton wasn't the best, despite a decent 3-3 draw at Anfield in his first game, winless in the first 5, including newly promoted Forest. He said he might be worth checking, but I'm only repeating what he's saying verbatim, all right? He says the concerns that you have on the pitch might get fixed, but off the pitch, his appointment seems to have upset fans that doubt his ability, but also fans that don't like his morals. obviously signing some very questionable characters. Obviously people talk about Mason Greenwood and what's gone on there, but there's other players that they've brought in that are in the grey area of character morals. That's how we're going to be politically correct probably about this one. Look, he's at times going to play some very great football. I have no doubt about that. I think at times he's going to rub fans the wrong way. I think for the most part, I think Brighton fans do hold him in good stead because obviously he was the one that took them to Europe. So you're always going to hold that. I think even Palace fans with Glasner, I think once the dust settles, I think they'll return back to he was the man that won the FA Cup. The Community Shield, took us into Europe. But they're still technically in Conference League. If they win the Conference League, I don't think they'll go, look, if he's leaving, we're sad to see him go really by the end, maybe. I don't know. But on De Zerbi, I think he's going to wind fans up at times. I do it with every manager. I will back the manager 1,000,000%, even if it's not the managers that wanted. Didn't want Tudor, didn't want Frank, backed him 100%. Does it always work? No. At some point, a manager leaves the club. It's guaranteed. 100% fact. But I hope fans at least, if the fans that go, we need to play more attacking football, then I hope you fully respect the fact they're going to play attacking football. And, at times, maybe we're going to be even more defensively open and be ready for that. And those fans are the same fans that used to attack Ange about that. It's at times going to be similar. So I hope you're ready for that again. I'm not a problem. I had no issue. In a weird way, I had no issues with Ange's ball because you know what? At least I enjoyed the football. And by the end, Jesus Christ, of these last two managers, I think we all look back and go, all right, we lost 4-3, but at least we didn't try and shoot ourselves a little bit watching Ange ball from time to time. Wait for someone to cry about me, the fact that I brought in Ange ball, by the way. You know there's going to be a fan going, oh, I hate Ange. Oh. Just grow up. Move on. It's been a year. Just move on, you weirdos. But on De Zerbi, I hope we give him the time. If he keeps us up, cracking, he's done 1 out of 1. His job for the year, 1 out of 1 done. He kept us up. And I do look at some of the Spurs fixtures coming up. You've obviously, the Forest one is an appalling result when you think about it. But you still got Leeds and Evertons and Brightons, and there's games in there that you can win. There's games in there you can get some points out of. I mean, to get it exactly, Spurs is. I just want to double check the date of Spurs' next game. It's the 12th of April. So he's probably going to have about 10 days in theory with these players. You can do a lot in 10 days. You can. I think people seem to have this idea. You can't do a lot. Can't do a lot. Nothing's much going to change. You do surprisingly amounts because a lot of these players played under Ange, don't forget. So a lot of them are going, yeah, we know we can play football. And, Destiny's coming back and Mickey's getting back fitter and Romero's coming back. Pedro's obviously not been back too long. That's the back four with Vic. Vic, obviously, we'll see about his hernia issue, but Kinski obviously go back and goal, obviously, if he's not back. Bentancur, we'll see about that. He played under Ange. Biss played for Brighton and under Ange. I'm not saying, by the way, I'm not, for someone cries that say that he wasn't there when Zerbi was there. I know. Don't panic. It's okay. Breathe. But Pape was there. A lot of these players played in that style of football. So, yes, there will be a transitional period. I don't think it would be as drastic as maybe other managerial points might have been. But let's see. Like I said, if he gets us playing and he keeps us up, then he's done his job for the year, and kudos to him. But we shall see. Let me know thoughts down below on De Zerbi's appointment. I'm keen to know what you think. Obviously, thanks to Ben for helping me there. It's always nice when a person in the know knows what he's doing, because sure as hell I know next to nothing. And I'll speak to you all very soon. Take care. Peace.